right, so because we're diving into James chapter 5, and man, this chapter is packed.
It really is.
I mean, we're talking wealth, we're talking poverty, suffering, patience.
You name it, it's all there.
Yeah. And you know what really stood out to me? Was how James tackles this whole idea of wealth, especially like in light of what he calls the last days.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. It's interesting, isn't it? It's not just some, like gentle suggestion to be charitable.
Right.
He goes all in. He uses this incredibly vivid imagery. He talks about riches, rotting clothes being eaten by moths,
Right.
gold and silver rusting away. It's almost like he's trying to make us feel that decay, the impermanence of all this like material wealth.
And he brings in this connection to the last days, which, for our listeners, this is this period of time that many early Christians believed was coming soon.
Right.
This time of judgment, the return of Christ. What do you make of that connection?
Well, within that context, it becomes even more potent, right?
Yeah.
Because James is saying, hey, all this stuff that you're clinging to,
Right.
it's not going to matter when eternity comes knocking. It really reflects a core value in early Christianity, this detachment from like worldly possessions.
Right.
As a way to prepare for a different kind of kingdom.
So it's not just a financial lesson.
No.
It's like a spiritual lesson,
Mm-hmm.
right? What truly has like lasting value in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly.
It makes you think about, where you're placing your bets, so to speak.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another powerful and, let's be honest, uncomfortable point that James makes, which is exploitation and injustice.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back, does he?
Not at all.
He's talking about those who are, withholding wages from workers.
Yeah.
Those who are living in luxury while others are, struggling to survive.
Yeah.
It's a pretty stark condemnation. What jumps out to you about this section?
I think the image that gets me is the cries of the workers reaching the ears of God.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, it's not just that it's happening, but it's like it's being heard.
Right.
It's being acknowledged by a higher power. Wow.
And, this is not a new concept. This concern for social justice
Right.
was like woven into the fabric of those early Christian communities.
It's interesting how these themes like echo throughout history, isn't it? Like we see similar calls for economic fairness and social justice
For sure.
popping up again and again.
Absolutely.
Does this challenge the way you think about your own like spending and consumption?
It definitely makes me pause.
Yeah.
James isn't just talking about those like extreme cases of exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
He's challenging us to consider the systems that we participate in,
Right.
the choices that we make every day. Where do our clothes come from?
Oh, yeah.
How are the people who grow our food treated? Are we even unknowingly benefiting from someone else's suffering?
That's tough.
Those are tough questions to sit with.
It's like he's urging us to be more aware of the impact of our actions, right?
Yeah.
Even like the seemingly small ones.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about money, it's about power dynamics, isn't it?
Who benefits, who suffers, and whose voices are being heard or silenced?
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, and it makes you wonder, how do we balance this call for justice with the need for patience
Right.
that James talks about later in the chapter?
Yeah, that's a great observation. Because he does seem to shift gears a bit, doesn't he?
He does.
Suddenly we're talking about, farmers waiting for the harvest.
Yeah.
It seems gentler, but there's still that undercurrent of resilience there.
It's like he's acknowledging the reality of struggle, right?
Yes,
But he's urging us to hold on to hope.
absolutely.
And he also says that waiting isn't passive.
Mm,
He talks about strengthening our hearts,
right.
preparing ourselves for what's to come.
Right. It's about cultivating endurance, which has been a recurring theme, in different philosophical and religious traditions throughout history.
Yeah.
I mean, the Stoics, for instance,
Yeah.
placed a huge emphasis on, developing resilience in the face of hardship.
So even in the midst of hardship, there's this call to action, this invitation to cultivate inner strength and resilience.
Right.
And it makes me think, how do we apply that practically?
All right. That's
How do we strengthen our hearts when things get tough?
That's where James gets really interesting because he doesn't just leave us with this vague concept.
Right.
He connects this idea of inner strength to honesty and speech.
Okay. Unpack that a little. He says, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Right.
On the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, but is there something deeper going on?
Definitely. He connects this idea of truthful speech with avoiding judgment, which I think speaks volumes. Our words have weight, don't they?
They do.
A careless word, a half-truth.
Right?
Even something seemingly harmless can create a ripple effect.
Right.
Think about the damage done by gossip, by rumors,
Right.
by just plain dishonesty. It erodes trust.
So it's more than just avoiding like outright lying.
Yeah,
It's about cultivating integrity in our communication.
absolutely.
Right. Being mindful of the impact of our words on others and on ourselves.
Exactly. And that integrity, that honesty is essential for building trust, which James seems to view as this bedrock for a strong community.
And that leads us to one of the most practical sections in this chapter.
Yeah.
The part that people often turn to for like comfort and guidance.
Right.
This is the prayer, praise, and healing section.
Absolutely.
Almost like a spiritual toolkit, right?
It is. It is.
Feeling down, pray, feeling good, sing praises.
Sing praises.
Sick, call the elders, pray, anoint with oil. What do you make of this section?
Well, what strikes me is how specific James gets. It's almost like he's giving us step-by-step instructions
Right.
for different situations. And there's this emphasis on the power of the prayer of faith. This belief that sincere, heartfelt prayer can bring about healing and forgiveness.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this idea of anointing with oil.
Well, it's not unique to Christianity, is it?
It's not. It's been used in various religious rituals and traditions
Right.
throughout history.
And it often symbolizes consecration healing or setting something apart as sacred.
Right.
It's like this physical act that accompanies prayer,
Right.
signifying a deeper spiritual intention.
Hmm.
And to me, it underscores that importance of community that James keeps circling back to. Like,
Right.
we're not meant to go through these things alone.
That's such a crucial point because he specifically says to call the elders right,
Right.
to pray together, to support each other in times of need.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to this fascinating concept of intercessory prayer.
It is fascinating.
The idea that the prayers of others can have a positive impact on us.
It's a powerful concept, and again, not limited to Christianity.
Right.
It speaks to the interconnectedness of community
Right.
and the belief that we can lift each other up through prayer.
Have you ever felt the impact of someone praying for you
Oh, yeah.
or witnessed the strength that comes from praying together?
Absolutely. There's something about sharing burdens and hopes with others that creates a sense of solidarity, of shared strength.
Yeah. And it's not just about asking for things for ourselves.
Yeah.
James is talking about interceding for others,
Right.
standing in the gap for them when they're struggling.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
It is.
And it leads us to another powerful act of support that James highlights,
Okay.
restoring those who have strayed from the truth.
Yep.
He uses this incredibly moving language about saving a soul from death
Right.
and covering a multitude of sins.
It speaks to the power of forgiveness and reconciliation, doesn't it?
It does.
And it raises some important questions. How do we approach those who have wandered from what we believe to be true?
Right.
Is it with judgment or compassion?
Right.
Can we, as James suggests, actually cover a multitude of sins through our actions? It's a lot to consider. But before we dive into that, let's take a quick pause and we'll come back to this idea of community in part 2 of our deep dive.
You know, it's fascinating how James uses this imagery of like rescuing a soul from death to describe this act of like bringing someone back to the community.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes the weight of responsibility
It does.
we have toward one another.
It really does. It's like he's saying that spiritual well-being is a matter of life and death.
Right.
And that by reaching out with compassion, we can actually like participate in saving someone's soul.
Right.
It's a powerful idea, and it kind of raises the question of how we define straying from the truth.
That's a great point. What constitutes straying? Is it about like specific doctrines or beliefs?
Right.
Or is it more about a way of life, like a turning away from those like core values? And who gets to decide what the truth is?
Right.
These are tricky questions, and I don't think James gives us easy answers.
Right. It's more about the spirit in which we approach these situations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we coming from a place of judgment or a place of love?
Right.
Are we trying to prove a point or to genuinely understand someone's struggles?
I think that gets to the heart of it. James doesn't tell us to go out and like debate theology with those who disagree. He talks about gently guiding them back, about covering a multitude of sins with love and compassion.
That image of covering sins is so striking.
It is.
It suggests that our actions can have this like redemptive quality,
Yeah.
that we can help to heal the wounds caused by someone's mistakes
Yeah.
or missteps. It makes me think about the power of forgiveness.
Absolutely. Forgiveness is such a transformative force,
It is.
both for the one offering it and the one receiving it.
Right.
It breaks down walls, allows for reconciliation, opens the door to new beginnings. It's essential for healthy relationships and communities.
So if we take a step back and look at James 5 as a whole, it's like he's painting this picture of what a truly authentic, lived out faith looks like. It's not just about believing certain things.
It's not.
It's about how those beliefs shape our actions, our relationships, our engagement with the world.
Yes. It's about embodying those beliefs in a way that's visible. And impactful. It's about aligning our actions with our values.
And what strikes me is how relevant this message feels today.
It is.
Even though it was written centuries ago.
I know, it's amazing.
We're still grappling with the same issues, wealth and poverty, injustice and suffering, the importance of community, the power of prayer. It's like James offers us this timeless guidebook for navigating these challenges.
He really does. And he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff.
No, he doesn't.
He calls out injustice. He challenges us to examine our priorities. He encourages us to persevere through trials. But he also offers a sense of hope. Reminding us that we're not alone in this journey. We have each other. We have the power of prayer. We have the guidance of ancient wisdom to help us along the way.
It's almost like a pep talk for the soul.
It is.
A reminder that even in the midst of hardship, there's strength to be found in faith, in community, in reaching out to one another, in turning to prayer. It's about finding that inner resilience we talked about earlier.
And that resilience is key because James doesn't offer easy answers or quick fixes.
He doesn't.
He presents these challenging concepts and invites us to wrestle with them. To figure out what they mean for our own lives, our own communities.
It's about engaging in deep reflection.
Yes.
Asking ourselves tough questions. Being willing to challenge our assumptions.
Absolutely.
It's about taking ownership of our faith and figuring out how to live it out authentically.
It's not about blindly following rules or doctrines, but about internalizing these principles. And allowing them to shape our choices and our actions.
And it's interesting how James weaves together these seemingly disparate themes.
It is.
We go from the dangers of hoarding wealth to the patient waiting of a farmer. From the power of prayer to the importance of honesty and speech. It's all connected.
Exactly. And what ties it all together is this overarching theme of living a life that's congruent with our beliefs. It's not enough to just say we believe certain things. We have to demonstrate those beliefs in the way we live. The way we treat others, the way we engage with the world around us.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Precisely.
Putting our faith into action in tangible, practical ways.
Exactly. And those actions can take many forms. It might be speaking up against injustice, volunteering our time to help those in need, or simply being more mindful and compassionate in our daily interactions.
It's about being a source of light and hope in a world that often feels dark and divided.
It is.
And it makes me think about that powerful line from James about faith without works being dead. It's a call to action.
It is.
An invitation to make our faith visible in the world.
Absolutely. And that visibility doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It can be in those small, everyday acts of kindness, generosity, and integrity. It's about making a difference however we can in the lives of those around us.
So as we delve deeper into these ideas of living out our faith
Yeah.
and making a tangible difference in the world,
Right.
I'm curious, what stands out to you as the most impactful message from James 5 so far? And how do you see it connecting to our listeners' life?
For me, it's the reminder that we're all interconnected. Our actions have consequences not just for ourselves, but for others.
Right.
We're called to care for one another, to support each other through challenges, and to work together to create a more just and compassionate world. And that's a message that resonates across cultures and time periods.
It does.
It's something we all need to hear, no matter our background or beliefs.
That's beautifully put. It's a reminder that we're part of something larger than ourselves.
Yes.
And that we have a responsibility to use our gifts and our resources for the betterment of others.
And that sense of responsibility is empowering, isn't it? It means that even small acts of kindness, generosity, or courage can have a ripple effect. Creating positive change in our communities and beyond.
It's like James is giving us permission to believe that our actions matter. That we can make a difference. And that's a message that's both inspiring and challenging.
It is. It's an invitation to step out of our comfort zone.
Right.
To be more intentional in our choices.
Right.
And to actively participate in creating a world that reflects our values.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive into James 5.
Okay.
Let's keep this idea of interconnectedness and the power of our actions at the forefront of our minds. As we've been, unpacking James 5,
Yeah.
I keep coming back to this sense of urgency that kind of permeates his words, right? He talks about the last days, about time being fleeting, about the importance of living with intention and purpose.
Right.
It's like he's saying, don't wait, do it now.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's not just about preparing for some future event. It's about living fully in the present moment, making each day count.
Yeah.
And I think that ties in beautifully with his emphasis on practical action.
Right. He doesn't just want us to sit around and think about these concepts.
No.
He wants us to put them into practice to let our faith be seen in the way we live.
Absolutely.
It's that faith without works is dead idea. Right?
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs. And for James, that means, caring for the vulnerable.
Right.
Speaking out against injustice, cultivating honesty in our relationships,
right,
and turning to prayer as a source of strength and guidance.
What resonates with you most from this idea of living out our faith?
For me, it's the reminder that we're not meant to do this alone. We have the support of our communities, the power of prayer, and the guidance of ancient wisdom to help us navigate the ups and downs of life.
Right.
And we have the responsibility to offer that same support and encouragement to others.
It's about recognizing that interconnectedness we keep coming back to.
Yeah.
Right. We're all in this together.
We are.
And even small acts of kindness or courage can have a ripple effect.
They can.
Making a difference in the lives of those around us.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the true power of James's message lies. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic pronouncements. It's about the everyday choices we make.
Right.
The words we speak, the actions we take. It's about being intentional, compassionate, and engaged in the world around us.
It's about showing up for each other.
Yeah.
About creating a world that reflects our values, even if it's one small step at a time.
It is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into James 5,
I
want to leave you, our listener, with a question.
Okay.
What part of James's message resonated with you the most? And how might you put it into practice this week? Maybe it's reaching out to someone who's struggling, examining your own spending habits, or simply being more mindful of the words you speak.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, let James's words be a source of inspiration and challenge for you.
Absolutely.
A reminder that even in the midst of uncertainty and hardship, we have the power to choose hope.
We do.
To choose love. And to choose to make a difference.
That's powerful.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, this was great.
And keep seeking, keep questioning, keep exploring. That's what it's all about.